Well, it's a good evening here from a real sultry Brisbane early evening. We're supposed to have a cyclone, seems to have clicked off and disappeared. Anyway, 7 o'clock, as you know, is our normal time on a Thursday night in Australia. And of course, it's 9 o'clock in the morning in the UK, where my fellow host, who's at the top, right at the very top in red today, all the way from Poole in the UK. And our guest in the middle is just down the road here in Brisbane. Anyway, so it's a good morning to you, Andrena.
Morning, Jeffrey. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Dreaming the New Dream. And I don't even know what day of the week it is today. I haven't even looked. What day is it today?
Thursday the 6th.
Six. Oh, yeah, right. Thank you. They're whizzing by so fast. Anyways, with great pleasure today that we have Alice. Sorry, oh God, I've gone all over the place. Alice Bennet on the show. Let's start again. Cut. Welcome, Alice, and it's lovely to have you as our guest today.
Thank you.
And I know you've got lots of stories to share, and I know we spoke briefly, and I loved how you started being an interpreter. What set you off on that pathway, if you like to? Would you like to share how it all started and some lovely stories and experiences about sign language, which I confess I know nothing about. I've never ever done.
Yes. Okay. Thanks. So I grew up in Toronto, Canada, and my neighbor about 6 or 7 houses down was deaf, but she couldn't sign. She had hearing aids and she could lip read really, really well, and her husband was hearing. And because her sister was deaf and her father was deaf, she didn't want to chance of deaf, so they adopted a little boy. And I babysit for them regularly, and I was quite intrigued by her deafness. And later on, she never signed. I'm very intrigued by her. And later on, when I finished university, I did a sign course, and it's American Sign Language in Canada. And she thought that was really interesting and told me to do it. So I went along and learned, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is so cool. This is what I want to do. I want to learn sign language. I want to be an interpreter. And I found it so easy. I just picked up the signs, and I was with a few other women in the class, and they just couldn't get it. I thought, how can you not get this? This is so easy. But this is really interesting. So I learned as much as I could while I was working in Ottawa. And then I had cold weather. My friend was saying, go to Australia. So I came over to Australia back in 1988, and I ended up working at Expo in the Britannia Inn because I paid better than the Canadian Pavilion. Not much, but it still paid a bit better. And
Alice, can I ask you to slow down a little bit because you're going so fast? I can only just grasp what you're saying.
I speed it up because normally I speak much quicker. Anyway.
No, not for us English folk.
Sorry, I'm not speaking the Queen's English. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
So I saw at one of my breaks there was the Queensland Theatre of the Deaf, and I was watching them. There were, there were like 10 people, and they were doing a story of a car, and people were doing different parts of the car, like there were the headlights and the really amazing and interesting. And one of the guys came over and bought some food. I thought, oh, I wish I could sign to him, but I did. But it was American Sign. Anyway, I ended up staying in Brisbane forever. And I thought I'd go to the deaf club and meet some deaf people. And I was talking to one lovely interpreter, and I said, hey, how do I get a job as an interpreter? And he said, the best way to learn a language is to immerse yourself. So I go to the deaf club in Brisbane every Tuesday and hang out with all the oldies. So the oldies, the oldies, which back then would be people in their 50s and 60s. Now most of them would be in their 80s and 90s or moved on. Anyway, so I learned so much from them, and I eventually sat my test to become an accredited interpreter. So when I first started working, there's only one agency that had interpreters. That was through the Deaf Club. So they'd phone me up and say, hey, can you go to this hospital? Can you go and do this job? So I do that. Every day was different. Some days there was no work, so I loved it. I knew there was plenty of work, but there's no guarantee I'd get work. I remember one of my first jobs, I had a 10 o'clock appointment at one of the hospitals, a specialist, and it was for 10 o'clock. And I raced to get there on time, and I got there on time. Because as an interpreter, our ethics are we need to be at the appointment 10 minutes before the appointment starts. So give us to park the car, find them where we're going, meet the deaf person, have a chat with the deaf person if we don't know who they are, haven't met them before. Anyway, so I got to the appointment on time, chatting with the deaf person. Now the appointment's for 10 o'clock. Didn't get in to see a specialist until 1 o'clock. I wasn't very happy, but that's just part of it. So I got paid overtime. So I get paid to chat. Yeah. I know sometimes it's a cruisy job. Well, today, for example, my job was canceled, so I still get paid. So I get paid not to work. How good. I know. Who else gets to work, right? I know. So what do you want me to just go on with more stories, or what would you like?
Yeah. So obviously, never experienced deafness, even though that my father was deaf and through lots of different things in wartime and what have you. So, and I know, like, if you suddenly get an ear problem and you can't hear, it's like a silent world, So for people that haven't got the hearing abilities, what is the most hardest thing that they have to deal with? Because obviously you need to be looking at that person to read their language. So obviously if you turn away, they've missed half of the. Would that be like the sort of biggest thing for people?
Yeah, so a lot of deaf people cannot lip read really well. And the hardest thing is that people say, people from overseas, we have so many, we live in such a multicultural world, a deaf person will go to see the doctor and they might have English will not be their first or second language. They'll have problems understanding the doctor if there's no interpreter. Or they might have a beard and a mustache, which will get in the way of their mouth and they can't lip read. That's a hassle too for deaf people. Or they talk really, really fast, or they'll talk like, can't read your lips if you're doing this. No. Yes, I know a guy who was really he could lip read really, really well, and he could watch my lips. And I said a word differently than Australians would say the word. I can't remember the word. He goes, "Oh, you're not Australian." I thought, "Wow, you can lip read really well." So he said, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from Canada." So pronunciation is really interesting between Australians and Canadians, Brits. Yes. We all speak English, but do we really all speak the same language? No.
No.
And the average deaf person in Australia has a grade 3 reading level.
Really?
Grade 3.
Grade 3, yeah. Yeah. So, the deaf person will rock up to the doctor's appointment. Oh, sorry, we forgot to book the interpreter. So a lot of deaf people will say, okay, that's fine. Pen and paper backwards and forwards. Doctor, and the deaf person will be too embarrassed to say they can't understand, and they don't want to, they get too embarrassed and they'll just pretend to write whatever, pretend to understand what the doctor's saying, and then just get out. And they might, not understand what medication they need or forget to get the script filled. So it's so important to have an interpreter to make sure they get 100% communications. Imagine living in a country that everybody speaks. You have there'd be you and maybe 3,000 of your friends and family that speak language, but everybody else in the community speaks a different language, which you will never be able to learn. So going to see the doctor, you need an interpreter. Parent-teacher interviews, an interpreter. Anything you need, an interpreter. And what happens if there's no interpreter available? Do you cancel the appointment, or do you just go and tolerate it anyway? What do you do?
Hey, Alice, do they often get hold of you in that situation? Do they text you and then ask you to do FaceTime or through Facebook Messenger or from Skype or something, and then you've got to listen and then do the actions, and do you do that?
Well, during COVID, a lot of interpreters worked from home. It's called VRI, Video Remote Interpreting.
Right.
So I did quite a few jobs like that. There were deaf people around Australia, but they could, ask for an interpreter. And basically, I was doing jobs for people in Adelaide, people in Melbourne, people in Perth, even though there's a time difference. Yeah, because they were desperate for interpreters. But because of that now, and because of, the technology, the interpreter's face would freeze or pixelate. The deaf person couldn't understand, or it was really bad reception. Deaf people prefer face-to-face. You know, I'd rather be there face-to-face with a deaf person than, you know, risk it if the reception, if the Wi-Fi isn't working very well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I did a dentist appointment a couple of years ago in Gympie, which is about 2.5 hours north. So 5 hours travel for a 20-minute job. Yes, I got paid for.
What's we're talking about pay. Is there a set rate for payment, or how does that work?
Well, it varies between agencies.
How does it? Agencies?
Yes. There's 3 or 4 agencies, and a lot of interpreters freelance, and a lot of interpreters work full-time for and
Right.
TAFE University as well.
Mm.
Now, I met you years ago.
Yes.
And then I just happened to be talking to you on last November, I think, at the cafe. And when I found out that your passion or your career was this interpreting, and I thought, oh, fantastic. It's the universal language. And then you really just blew me away and said, no, every country has its own sign language. I just, that's why I said to Andrena, we need to get this lady on the show and bring this subject up, because I would have thought, like everybody else,
A universal one, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
There is the United Nations have an international sign language for those who follow the United Nations, but majority of countries will have their own language. Well, and also a lot of the English-speaking countries will either have American Sign Language, like the Philippines use American Sign Language, whereas, you know, England, they use BSL, British Sign Language. And do you remember the Greek folk singer Nana Mouskouri?
Yeah.
Way back when I think early 80s, she was singing at a concert in Ottawa, and she had 2 interpreters on stage. One on one quarter signing American Sign Language, and one on the other quarter signing into French Sign Language for all the people that speak French in Canada.
Wow.
Yes, that's how popular she was. Yes.
Incredible.
Just pulling up all the different sign languages here while you're talking. Carry on.
Okay. How many are there? Lots.
God. So are there many people, because I've got no idea, like the percentage of people that are deaf and the percentage of interpreters. Is it quite a high volume of people that are deaf? Or have you noticed it's more and more, or is it declining, or?
It's more, I'd say there's maybe 3,000-4,000 deaf people in where are we, Brisbane, that need interpreters. But so there's, you know, people that use sign language opposed to people that are older that become deaf that don't know sign language. And a lot of babies born now that are deaf, that are born into deaf families, they want to, you know, get Cochlears onto them straight away so they can have they can pick up the sounds as well as learn the sign language. So they can have both. Whereas, you know, 30 years ago when cochlear implants were new, a lot of the deaf people were criticized and said, no, don't put the cochlears on the babies. You know, teach them sign, give them both, best of both worlds.
Yeah, because I know we had a gentleman on the show back along, and he had one of these in his brain there, and he could hear, I think, 50% more than he could ever hear before. You know, and obviously people do what's right for them, but I thought, oh my God, like, you know, just
it was a struggle, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I can't imagine, you know, having that in your head, but obviously it had given him a new lease of life. But, you know, it's like sometimes it makes you wonder if there aren't easier things to do to help people regain sight and hearing, really. Have you found any people that have suddenly regained their hearing over time?
They won't regain their hearing if they're profoundly deaf. But if to have a cochlear implant, that will pick up the benefits are really good because they'll have aware of environmental sounds. So if they're driving, they'll be able to hear the sirens or somebody beeping at them, or which a lot of deaf people want, that the environmental background noise. So they're aware of their surroundings. So they feel safer, and they do. extensive testing for the cochlears. And they really want to get them in babies between 9 to 10 months old, if possible.
Wow.
And,
Mm.
and I remember one woman in her 40s or 50s, she was keen to get a cochlear because her friend told her that, oh, if you get a cochlear implant, you'll be able to hear, you'll be able to talk, which isn't true because everybody's different. And, you know, she ran through all the tests and she found that she wasn't eligible because she didn't have enough language. Because you got to have so much language before they're going to say, yes, you can have a cochlear implant. Because there's so much speech afterwards. You know, if you don't have the language beforehand, it's not worth it. And there are also other people who have had the cochlear implant, and after 10 years or 15 years, I thought, no, I don't want it. Please take it out. So they will take it out.
Is that right?
Yes.
Oh,
Really?
So once the cochlear implant has been put in and they take it out, basically that ear is done. That's permanently deaf in that ear. No hearing aid will work in that ear. Yes.
Yeah, because I know there, for people that have got some hearing ability, there's different types of hearing devices, isn't there? I think they're fine tuning more and more. But I mean, I've got no idea, so I can't really say anything about the subject because it's not something I'm aware of. But does there seem to be more and more different devices? You know, I know they do lighter ones, and you know, you see adverts for smaller ones and different ones completely.
You're talking about hearing aids.
Yeah.
Is it hearing aids or cochlear implants? Yes. So some deaf want a cochlear implant, and some deaf people are happy with 2 hearing aids. Some deaf people have 2 cochlear implants or 1 cochlear implant and 1 hearing aid, but everyone's different. What they want and what the best thing is for them. And the really good thing about the hearing aids is they're an app for the hearing aid. They can download it on their phone and they can tweak it. You know, they can tweak the volume on their phone, or they can change the programs on their phone without having to go back behind their hearing aid and adjust the volume.
Yeah. Because I remember going into the Lloyd's Bank in the UK years ago, and they had, when you went to the tellers, they had the little sign there for deaf people where they could go to that particular teller, which had like a Bluetooth thing happening between the deaf person and the teller. Is that still in the UK, Andrena?
I know there's for Braille, but I haven't. Banks over here now are few and far between anyway. They're all closing down. So I haven't been in a bank for I don't know how long. So I honestly can't say. What was I going to say about it? So what have you found some of the hardest things for people to deal with? And obviously there's people coming from all walks of life dealing with all different situations, but what is the thing that's touched you the most in doing your work?
Oh, seeing how people are hard done by in some situations, and mental health problems, because mental health issues in deaf children are many more deaf children have got mental health issues than hearing children.
Really?
Yes, because imagine deaf child born into a hearing family, there's something wrong with this child. You know, the poor mother has no idea, takes the baby to the doctor, and the doctor says, oh, no, he's fine. And the baby's not responding, and the mother's freaking out, what's going on? Something wrong with my child. And the baby's, oh, you're deaf, okay. And oh my God, my poor baby's disabled. Whereas if the deaf child is born into a deaf family, oh, it's normal, my baby's deaf, great, no big deal. But, labeled deaf with the hearing family, disabled, oh, we have to learn sign language, oh, it's too hard. So many parents don't learn sign because it's too hard.
Really?
Can't be bothered. Yeah.
That's sad.
Hey, Alice, do you ever get called up to go, say, an international flight? So you have to turn up at the international airport and have to take them through security. Do you act on that basis and going through?
Oh, I guess they get paper through that, or no, I don't know if there are any interpreters working at the airports.
Yeah. Just thinking. So primarily you're going to schools where they're having parent-teacher nights, or there's enrollments for going to university, college, or whatever, and obviously for medical appointments. So of that, the medical appointments probably be a bit of privacy required in some of those checkups and stuff.
Everything I do is private. You know, I can't say, hey, I interpreted for Mr. Smith, and guess what? Mr. Smith has got herpes because he was sleeping with Mrs. Jones. Oh, this is such a small community. Everybody knows everybody.
Oh dear.
My friend, one of my colleagues was telling me she was interpreting for a deaf man. You know, he was off to surgery, and they're going through the checklist. When was the last time you eat? Oh, I had, haven't eaten since yesterday. Meanwhile, he's telling the interpreter signing, oh, I just had a yummy piece of fish for lunch. And she said, what? She said, stop. And she told the doctor what the deaf man had said. And the doctor said, no, surgery's canceled. So the deaf man got really upset at the interpreter.
Oh dear, yeah.
Yes. I remember a job in it was a heart problem. This guy had rocked up the night before with heart pains, and I went in having no idea what I was doing. It was in the cath lab. I can't remember what that stands for. And I ended up interpreting for this guy. Had an angiogram, so he has a wire through his thigh, inner thigh up into the heart to see if there's any blockages. So basically, he cannot move his arms. So I have to get leaded up because we're in radiation. There's 2 doctors there. So I'm talking to the doctors beforehand. I said, do I need to get leaded up? And they said, because they have got no idea about sign language. Oh, no. There's a microphone. You can go in the back there with the computers and you can, I thought, yeah, right. You guys have no idea. I'll speak to a nurse. So I spoke to the nurse. She said, yes, I'll show you where you can get leaded up. I've got a lead protect my thyroid, and then a vest, and then a skirt just to cover myself. And I'm there talking. So the poor deaf man cannot move his arms, so he cannot talk. So I'm standing there in front of him. The 2 doctors are to my right doing their stuff. And I'm, talking to the deaf man. I said, do you want me to interpret what the doctors are saying, or do you want me to distract you? And he said, please distract me. So I'm telling him stories of whatever, I grew up in Canada, I learned how to song, and just totally distracting him. And then when it was all finished, he had to go back to a bed, and he can't move. He's got to rest for 20 minutes because he's just had a wire put up I think it's whatever the artery is in his leg, and and the nurse is there with like 5 or 6 students watching, and she's got a heavy weight on that because it's a wound, and he's basically, and they've got his watching his blood pressure and watching everything else like this. And 5 minutes to go, he lifted up his arm to stretch or whatever, and the bell started ringing. And the students were panicking, and the teacher said, it's fine. So finally, he's good. He can move a bit. He hasn't eaten. He's starving. Anyway, so we went back to his room, and he goes, I'm really hungry. I said, you'll have to wait. Anyway, so he's tilted to be fed his lunch. And the nurse, I said, do you want to die? He goes, yeah. I said, no, you'll have to wait. I'm teasing him. There's nobody else around. And I said, hey. So the nurse went off to get a sandbag, and then she tilted him up vertically, and she fed him lunch, and I went home, and he was fine. Yeah. Sometimes back to.
So you're not there when they're doing a prostate or a colonoscopy?
Well, yeah, I have been there. I always get them confused. Now, what's the one up the bum? That's an endoscopy.
Colonoscopy.
Oh yeah, right. Colonoscopy. Yeah, you go up the colon. Yes. So I interpreted for this old guy years ago. Went in for the prep. And the nurse was saying, come in, take this prep. This is the food you cannot eat. Come in. He said, okay. So she said, do you have somebody to pick you up? I said, no. All right. She said, come in an hour early. So I rocked up with him the next, a week later, whatever. And she said, have you taken this? Yes. Have you done this? Yes. And who's picking you up? He said, I have nobody to pick me up. This poor man. Anyway, she said, okay, fine. You will be awake for it. It'll be mildly uncomfortable, but you'll be awake. So I got to go in and watch.
Oh. Right.
Didn't supply any porn. Yes, it was really cool. I got to watch. It was a big screen. I got to watch, and they had to burn off 3 or 4 polyps. And the poor man it was mildly uncomfortable, but it was, he was all right.
Right. And you've been there for births and that?
No, actually, yes.
Yeah.
I have. I was there for cesarean, but I couldn't see anything because they put up a sheet. I was there, for the mother and the father. Yeah,
so
that was.
as Robbie Williams would say, you weren't at the business end.
That's it, unfortunately.
So going to schools and all that stuff and getting enrolled in there, of course, is that your normal everyday run-of-the-mill school, or you have to go to a special school?
Well, recently there were just a few schools that had hearing impaired units, but now they're much more plentiful. So they're immersing the deaf kids into schools with an interpreter there, as well as an Auslan language mentor. So you got the teacher will be standing up, there'll be interpreter interpreting what the teacher says, and there'll be a deaf person there watching to make sure the kids are understanding what the interpreter's saying. So that's schools and high schools. And that's probably popped up in the past 12, 13 years.
All right. Okay. So, and then of course, having an interpreter on TV really came about when we saw the Christchurch earthquakes, and the mayor of Christchurch had an interpreter beside him. That was the first time I've actually seen an interpreter on mainstream television, and now it's become a rule of thumb now, isn't it?
Has it?
Yeah, for like floods or earthquakes or.
No, they should be on all the time, not when emergency or the government wants everyone to know what's really happening.
Yeah, what's.
So yeah, I saw you didn't get the call up to go and do the one for the cyclone that's currently going around off Brisbane.
No.
Yeah, good. And so, so you just get a text. I would take it because people would use a texting thing, but and then you probably get the emails. And I've got your email address here. So people watching here in Australia, they could actually take note of that, and they could actually email you, and then you can offer your services as a virtual. What's the name? How close is that to the New Zealand sign language?
I think there's some signs are similar, but I don't know.
Well, there'd be a few little idioms, like in Australia we would say, instead of saying tomorrow afternoon, we would say tomorrow arvo. Yeah. Yeah. And in New Zealand, they would say, hey, cuz, or hey, bro. So
that'd be just a greeting. Yes. Yeah. English idioms are really interesting because I did a workshop on those years ago. We say this in English. What would you say in sign language? Say, for example, I wouldn't touch that with a barge pole. You know that saying?
Yeah.
What does that mean? If somebody didn't speak English, how would
you keep them a mile away.
Yeah, that's what we sign in Auslan. Yeah, it's like.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what's the most? Obviously, you've come across so many different cases. What's been the most upsetting or tragic for you to deal with in the course of different people that you've met?
I did palliative care for a woman, and I took the job, and then I phoned back to the agency. And I said, "Oh my gosh, she's dying! What's happening?" Because I was kind of freaked out. And they said, "No, it's fine. Go." So I went to the hospital, and she was lying in bed. Her husband's there in a wheelchair, and there were some doctors in the room, and she was just lying there. She was really, really miserable. But then as soon as I walked into the room, I said, "Hi, I'm Alice. I'm your interpreter." Her face just lit up. Finally somebody who can talk to me. It was just amazing, but it was still heartbreaking. Because she here is on her last legs. Yeah. So I found that. And I find funerals are really hard.
Oh, you do funerals as well?
Yes. My first funeral I did. The second funeral I did, this man had probably died in his 50s or 60s, and he had 2 grown-up kids in their 30s. And the daughter had just was saying, "Oh, I'm going to stand up now, and I don't, do you want me to talk too fast?" Or, "I don't want to talk too fast." I said, "Just do what you need to do. I will keep pace. Just make it." Because it's hard to do funerals.
Yeah, I mean, you can't imagine. Well, you can to a little degree, but you can't overall, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You know what? This has to be the most difficult conversation we've ever had in 6 years. Because, no, with the greatest respect, because you don't realise an aspect of our society, our community, is tone deaf. It has the sounds of silence, and just to be put in there, you know, like, what's that expression? You don't know anyone unless you walked in their moccasins. And so, for us, it's like we're grasping at straws to actually put ourselves in the shoes of someone who's deaf, and not only that individual, but their family, and then the widespread community as they walk through life. That's what's really, really fascinating. That's why I'm really enjoying this conversation, to be perfectly honest with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I interpreted for one guy who was being admitted into the hospital, and the young Asian doctor, you know, was asking questions, and then she said, "Oh, and what happens when you don't have an interpreter? How do you communicate?" He said, "Pen and paper, but use short words because English isn't my first language." And then she said, "Oh, what is your first language?" Well, deaf man looked at me. We looked at each other. We both rolled our eyes, and he said, "Editor." Okay, so I had to explain.
Sorry, what was it?
What was what?
What was his language?
Auslan, Australian Sign Language.
Oh.
But the doctor didn't get it.
Didn't get the joke.
Oh, yeah.
I'm an interpreter. Hello, yeah, I know, right? And
right.
every time I go into an appointment, I'll sit next to the professional, I'll sit next to the doctor, or wherever I am for Centrelink or wherever, so the deaf person can look at me and look to the professional, flip between the two of us. And it makes some people really uncomfortable because I'm like their shadow. So I explain, "Hi, I'm your interpreter. I'm going to sit next to you. If you please just direct the deaf person, ignore me. Everything the deaf person signs, I will voice, and everything you say, I will sign to the deaf person. Everything is confidential." You know, sometimes they say, "Great." Or other times, "Oh, can you ask Mr. Smith how's he feeling?" I said, "No, you ask him. I'm the interpreter."
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, not doing his job.
And
yeah.
I
right,
know.
so Carol's just put up a post saying, what did Carol say? I only saw a bit of it. Jeffrey, right. Have any of your clients managed to read interesting comments of politicians or any others that they didn't realize you could hear or understand?
Normally it's the royal family, isn't it? Along with politicians, and they usually do it with football. Because in football, you'll see in gridiron, unless they're football, you'll see there people going like this, you know, and you see the soccer players coming off the football field, and they go like that too, so that the microphone's not picking them up or lip reading. Yeah.
Okay.
So have you experienced any interesting comments that maybe you shouldn't have?
No.
If you know what I mean.
No. Only 65% of the English language is lip readable. So because the three of us have language from the day we were born, and English, I'm assuming, is our first language, we can lip read better than the average deaf person.
Can we?
Okay, I want to do something, but can I swear or not? Can I swear?
Go on.
Okay, so can you see my lips? What am I saying?
I love you?
No. Close.
Does that start with F?
No. That's the other one. Okay, there's two of them.
It looks, it's like I love you, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, this is I love you.
Oh, okay. Oh, I love you. Okay.
The other
So
one
go
is
again.
Still looks the same to me.
saying elephant shoes. I love you.
Elephant shoes.
Yes. Okay, here's the other one. Ready?
Would have never have got that.
Okay, what do I say now?
Well, that looks like F you.
Yeah, it's not. It's not.
Thank you. No.
Okay, this is thank you.
Do it again. Thank you. Okay.
This is F. Okay, this is what I was doing first of all.
No.
Vacuum.
Vacuum. Oh, okay. So there's a close similarity to the F. Okay, gotcha.
Yes,
Yeah.
so similar to FU. Yes, it's quite funny. And
Yeah.
we can tease some deaf people that lip read really well. We'll say, you might think, don't swear at me.
Yeah, gotcha. Hey, because when you're doing I've got the sign language in the back for me here. It's just the letters of the alphabet. But do you have to actually to create a word? And do you have to put all those like the word love? You have to go and do every syllable to get the love, or is there a certain
Well, love is like this. You cross your like this, okay? Or this, which is I love you. But again,
right?
it all comes down to context.
Right.
All about context.
So the shortcuts, yeah?
Not shortcuts. What's the context? It's all context.
So it comes back to the hand gesture, the facial expression, and your body movement.
So I did a workshop years ago on swearing, because swearing is really important. So we watched the
I'll say.
Learn a language. How do you say this? How do you say this? How do you say F you? Anyway, so we watched a clip of Reservoir Dogs. Have you seen the movie?
Going back a few years. Is that with the guy in Gladiator, Russell Crowe? Is that him?
I don't know, but there's like 4 or 5 mafia sitting around in a booth, and every second word is F this, F this, F this.
Right.
And when you're saying, oh, you're an effing idiot, what does that mean? You know, it comes back to context. Or just get the F out of here. What does that mean?
Yeah.
So it comes back to context. And then we worked out there were 60 different signs for the word F.
60. How many? 60.
60 signs. Yes, easy. It's a verb, it's a noun, it's an adjective, it's an adverb, it's everything.
60.
Wow.
60. Because it comes, yes.
There you go. Oh, it's up there with shit.
Yes.
Yeah, jack shit. You know, all the different shits.
So if you're gonna say jack shit, which means what? You know nothing.
Yeah.
So there's context.
I got you now. Bloody hell. Oh, that's very good. Very...
We've been educated here. Gosh.
Good.
Yeah. Well, that's what I think about.
So you got 60 different versions of the F in Auslan. Obviously, British Sign Language and American Sign Language, they would still have the same 60 representations.
Or more.
Yeah. Okay.
So is there another letter that has more than the F letter?
What do you mean?
Connotations?
I don't know. Think of the word run. If I tell you the word run, R-U-N, what does that mean?
Movement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Give me a sentence.
What?
Put it in a sentence.
You go for a run.
Okay. That's one. That's right. Yep.
You want to walk or run?
Okay. Same. It's the same sign, right?
Yeah, right. You got to run to the toilet. That's all.
Mm-hmm. My nose is running. I've got to run to my tights.
Yeah. Oh, you're running your tights. Yeah. Okay.
The signs for one word.
There's one more, is there?
3 signs for the one, which probably is lots more than but I can't think of them yet.
Right. Okay. Right. Sure. And do you ever get asked to go shopping with any of the deaf people? Are they okay with no? You got to go. Yeah.
Sometimes I'll go shopping.
Is that for the big stuff like the electronics or the clothing or
Yes.
computers?
Yeah. So big, I went and got a car the other day. That's the biggest one I've had to do.
Wow.
Yes.
What about people experiencing different foundation, and because or like I know Carol put at the beginning about Mr. Holland the movie. I can't remember what else. I didn't see what else was said, but obviously feeling and different sensations. Hang on, if I can move this out at the bottom, I can't. Right, the film was called Mr. Holland's Opus. Are you aware of that one?
I can see it.
You have or you haven't? No, all right. With Richard Dreyfuss as a music teacher and the father of a deaf son, and how the boy could feel the vibration of music. So do people talk about the different vibrations they can feel if they're in certain places or they're around people? Can they feel the vibrations from coming off that people?
Well, if there's loud music and they can feel the vibrations on the floor, yeah. I mean, you'd think a deaf party would be very quiet, but no, they're very noisy. The music is up, not loud, so everybody can hear the vibration. Yeah, they're very loud. And everyone's got a different degree of deafness. Some people can hear, the dogs barking, the motorcycles going past, the airplanes.
Yeah, but a lot of people actually will shut down those frequencies. I mean, if you got a noisy motorbike going down the street, I mean, you sort of block it out. I remember living in Brisbane at Morningside, and you have the trains going through, and on Wynnum Road, which is a major road, back and forth of cars. People would come over and say, "Gosh, there's a lot of bloody noise here, mate," and you sort of blocked it out. You didn't even acknowledge the sound anymore. Yeah.
Yes. And yes, as hearing people, we can filter what we want to hear and things we don't want to hear. But deaf people will feel the vibrations, or what's that? I can feel that vibration. I'll say, oh, that's a motorcycle. Or if there's a low plane, oh, I can feel that. What's that? I said, oh, it's a plane. Or I hear the noise. Oh, that's a car. That's a truck.
Right. So they can get word association to the vibration and puts it into their memory banks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like us, we'll all have trouble trying to ascertain when an electric car comes up behind us.
All right, I think that's creepy. I don't know what it is about when I hear them coming. It's like it reminds me of spacecrafts coming up slowly behind you. I don't know. I just don't like the sound when I hear them go by. It's really funny.
Yes, and just get out of their way and let the aliens keep going.
Indeed. Right. And we have silent discos where people have to wear earphones and move their bodies to invisible music. Very odd.
Yes.
Whatever next. Tell me, I know you get people with hearing dogs for the deaf, don't they? Are there more and more? I haven't seen many, but I know I've seen a few.
I know 2 people that had hearing dogs. I don't know what's happened, if they're getting more. Maybe people are just getting Cochlears now, and the hearing aids are just improving technology. So there's less and less hearing dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, when we first started the show 6 years ago, Facebook used to come in at the bottom there with captions. I noticed that. I think the product is still available, but it was actually interfering with the show, talking away with the captions coming through at the bottom. And I thought about it yesterday. I thought, I have to go and find out where I can go back onto Facebook and find that section where you can put captions just for this particular show. And I clean forgot about it until just now when I listened to you saying about hearing dogs. Okay. Sorry about that.
Oh, well.
That's how it is. So what else would you like to share? Because you're opening us up to a different world that most of us are not aware of. So what other advice or sharing would you like to say that might help people along the way?
I interpreted for this woman who had she got a cataract operation, and she was blind in her left eye. She was getting her cataract done, so I was with her for the whole procedure. I got to sit down. They put me down in front of a little screen. I got to watch the whole procedure, and then when she came out of twilight, I was there. But because she had her right eye was done, so that was bandaged up, and her left eye was done, I had to use I had to sign on her hand like this, so she could understand me, because she couldn't see because both eyes were taped. Anyway, so when I was there, and then her husband came to pick her up, and I said, "Oh, your hubby's here," and he said hi on her hand, and she was so happy that I did such a good job. I stood up and she stood up, and she went to hug me, and her glasses went flying and my glasses went flying.
Oh,
She was so pleased that I was there. She can't hear, and both of her eyes are covered up, so hubby had to slowly, escort her to the car to get her home.
So that was interesting. You just brought up you're actually going into their hand and you're doing that. That's amazing as well.
Yeah, it's like Helen Keller.
Right.
I also used to interpret with a woman, a deaf blind woman. She put her hands on top of my hands, and I do a lot of work with her.
Hey, in the course of my investigation on the show, I came across this website here in Australia, and it's for children. Books. Hang on a second, scrolling up. Little dictionary, picture dictionary. If it's anybody watching, it'd be help, just to get things started. It's a really fascinating subject, and I really appreciate you coming on, Alice, and making us aware of all these things that haven't had any things before.
But it's a totally different world, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I'll just put that up there. Dolby Store.
Yeah.
Okay. What else we got there?
So I've been to a job. I rocked up to a job and said, "I'm the interpreter for so and so," for the woman, and the woman that I was interpreting for was right behind me, and she goes, "Yes, that's me." She wasn't deaf. Got the language wrong. She needed a Chinese interpreter. So, right, see you later. So still get paid.
So I suppose a lot of your work comes in, like when people suddenly get an appointment through. Then, I mean, is there a little percentage of your work this regular? Where you are each week with things, and the rest of it is open, or is it all totally open and it just comes in when it comes in?
Yes. Comes in when it comes in. Sometimes I'll have a couple of years ago, I had a regular deaf man who booked me for like 10 weeks for the same psychologist over 10 weeks.
Right.
Or I've also done TAFE for years. I've done most trades in TAFE, and I've done university, so that would be right.
Right. So it says here about Auslan sign language. It takes about 2 years to become fluent. Would you agree with that?
It's all different. Everybody's different. If they're studying full time, possibly, but everyone's different learning.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So any other stories you'd like to share? Because I can't, I don't know what else to ask you about this, because like I said, it's a totally new world for us. So
I take it then the local medical centres around your area that you live, or even the local hospitals, would have you in their database that they could.
Yeah. All the hospitals have an agency they contact.
Oh, it goes that way, is it? Okay,
yes.
And don't personally go to you.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, I ended up going up to Calandra Hospital. This is on a Friday, early afternoon. And I called the agency. I said, can you just confirm this job? He goes, yes. Otherwise, I'm driving all the way to Caleondra. Anyway, so I get over the bridge, and then I get a call. I said, yep, it's on. I said, great. I rocked up there, and they said, no, there's no appointment. I said, oh, really? Yep. And it was supposed to be for physio, and the physio guy said, no, there's no appointment. I thought, okay, somebody's made a mistake. And the woman, the boss, said, oh, come in, let me give you a coffee. I'm so sorry. Just sit and have a coffee and chill. She was just so apologetic. She said, what are you going? Sit on the beach. I've got my polyester workwear on. It's Friday. It's the last day of school. I thought, no, I'm just going to go home before I get stuck in the traffic. But yeah, it happens. Drive an hour and a half for a job and there's no job.
Well, you certainly get to see life, and see the countryside.
Yes. And then another time I had a job at a local hospital in August. Okay. August. So I rocked up there. The receptionist says, yes, I'm the interpreter for whoever. And the receptionist on the computer. Oh, the job's been canceled. I said, okay. So this is August. We're in August. And I said, oh, when was the job canceled? She goes, oh, October.
Really?
So 10 months ago, canceled.
Wow.
Communication breakdown. Yes, I know. The irony of it. Yes.
And do you find that happens a lot, communication breakdown?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. There are some weeks I get paid not to work than I do to work. It happens. So this week, because, there's a cyclone happening sometime, I had a job today, got canceled, I get paid. I've got jobs tomorrow. They've both been canceled, I still get paid. I've got jobs in the weekend, I'm sure I'll still get paid for those. I'm sure they'll be canceled.
Well, I'm sure you're worth every penny in what you do. So, it's incredible what you're doing to help other people. And obviously that was your pathway, and that was your gift of being with that neighbor that set you off on this path, eh?
Yes.
And
go on. And the funny thing is that there's not enough interpreters in Australia, and there's not. Growing up in Canada, I used to go back and visit her from time to time, and she would say there's still not enough interpreters in Canada. It's the same thing. There's always been a shortage of interpreters.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, because it's not an easy job for people to do. So you've got to have that sort of ability within you, haven't you, to communicate on so many levels to so many different people on, different dynamics and different agendas, isn't it? So it's not for the faint-hearted, really.
That's it. Yes.
My cousin's deaf. She was deaf around 6 years old, even though she's got hearing aids. But and she's a very, very intelligent. She's got a master's in some medical world. I notice that when she speaks, it's a different form of pronunciations and accentuations of the words. But I take my hat off to her to be able to climb through that whole education world and then get a master's and then be in the medical world and then have 3 children, husband and so forth. It's the only person who's so close to us in our family that's it touches you, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway.
About 31 years ago, there was International Day of the Interpreter, and I was staffing the stalls in the city at the mall, and this deaf blind man got up and through his interpreter said, oh, I've got 2 degrees. What's wrong with you? 2 degrees. Deaf blind.
Wow.
Yes. Poor interpreters. Holy cow. The hours and the hours and the hours. Yes. Wow. Yes. Good for him.
Well, wasn't there somewhere where the mother and the daughter, the mother was the interpreter for the daughter, and then when the daughter sat for the exams and the mother's doing it, all the stuff. So the actual university gave the mother a degree as well?
Oh, really?
I'm sure I saw that, yeah, because her mother had done the work as well, really, at the end of the day, to teach her daughter. I think that was really benevolent. That was really fantastic. Rightio. Any other? Was there any other passion in life that you've chosen the path that you would have taken if you hadn't taken this?
Can I ask you about your cat behind? Was that a pet?
So that cat is the mother to my daughter's cat, and my friend who painted that gave me my daughter's cat. That's Minky.
I thought I must just ask you. That presence is behind you.
Yes.
Okay, any other words of wisdom or anything you'd like to share before we close up today?
I got a friend in Canada, and her cousin was profoundly deaf years ago, maybe 30, 40 years ago, and her friend wanted to join the army. And they said, you can't join. You're deaf. She said, if you don't let me join, it's discrimination. So she got into the army. Don't know what she was doing, but yeah, good for her.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to say thank you in honor of the work that you do. It's absolutely incredible. And, you know, it's just wonderful. And I'd like to say thank you for sharing. It's been a real eye-opener, if you like.
Eye-opener. It was over your eardrums, isn't it?
Or ear-opener.
Alice, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Right. I'll see you 7 o'clock next Thursday.
Okay, same time, same place next week. Okay, thank you everybody for tuning in this week, and thank you, Alice, and thank you, Jeffrey.
Yeah. Okay.